All right, so last night on March 1st, or 3-1, the Golden State Warriors defeated the Atlanta Hawks without Steph Curry and also without last year's NBA Finals MVP, Andre Iguodala. So, a lot of interesting things about this game. I didn't go that in depth in the game, but I just want to point out a whole bunch of connections and a whole bunch of things with this. So, anyway, the game was on 3-1. I've talked a lot about how Oakland, where Golden State plays, Oakland equals 31, Curry equals 31. I previously mentioned tons of the 11 connections to the Warriors. Klay Thompson, even number 11, drafted the 11th pick in the 2011 draft. The 11th prime number is 31, so it all goes together here. They play in California, the 31st state. Anyway, the Warriors were up 59-48 at halftime in this game. So they were up by 11. It was also their 59th game of the season. So they scored 59 at halftime. They're in their 59th game of the season. Atlanta Hawks play in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia equals 59. Just wanted to put that in there. Like I said, sometimes things add up to something and they don't win. But if they're connected to it a different way, they do win. So, interesting. So anyway, there's a ton of other things in this game, and I even read in here that I'd talk about it in my video. I didn't go back and rewatch the video of the game. Otherwise, I would talk about them. I mean, they're just simple little things, like where they stop the clock, certain times and whatnot. I mean, it was pretty much just like the previous game that I made a video on with the Thunder. Just tons of random things. But anyway, in this game, the announcers kept mentioning Curry's back-to-back double-digit three-point games. So he had, I think it was 10 three-pointers a couple games ago, and then he had the 12 three-pointers against the Thunder the other night. So they kept mentioning back-to-back double-digit three-point games. I made a video and also some posts about the Warriors winning back-to-back championships because of the NBA All-Star Week where Zach LaVine won back-to-back slam dunk contests. Also, Russell Westbrook won back-to-back NBA All-Star MVP game or whatever. And for whatever the reason, over that Lupercalia span where the NBA All-Star was, last year, it was completely coded to the NBA Finals. The Warriors even won 122 days after Valentine's Day. Golden State equals 122. But I mean, they just keep throwing this in there. If you watch the Warriors games and you listen, they keep mentioning stuff about back-to-back. Like, even last night, since the Warriors went to overtime again, it was their second game in a row where they went to overtime, so it was back-to-back overtime wins for the Warriors. You know, right after Steph Curry has back-to-back double-digit three-point games. Even in the Warriors Thunder game, they kept mentioning how the Warriors have 5 back-to-back games left until the end of the season. So they're going to play, and then they play again the next night. And they were making a big deal about it for whatever the reason, you know. So anyway, I wrote a whole bunch of stuff here. It's kind of organized, but if the Warriors play the Thunder again tomorrow night on 3-3, and if the Warriors win, they will tie the Chicago Bulls' 44-game home win streak. Right now they have 43 after beating the Hawks. And wouldn't you know, the last time that the Warriors lost a home game, it was against the Chicago Bulls on January 27th of 2015. I mean, what are the odds of that being compared to the Chicago Bulls like crazy this year? The last time they lost a home game was to the Bulls. The score is even 113-111. In the last video about the robot takeover and whatnot with Olivia Munn, I talked about this. I also mentioned it previously in regards to the Warriors and the Portland Trailblazers, how the Warriors picked up Anderson Varejao because Portland dropped him. They picked him up 3 months and 11 days before the NBA Finals. It was also Anderson Varejao is wearing number 18 for the Warriors. It was 18 days before the Warriors play the Blazers again on 3/11, March 11th. Also, the date 127, similar to 127. 127 is the 31st prime number. Can also be written as 27-1. 271 is the 58th prime number. So, like Freemasonry, 58. Andre Iguodala equals 58. The Warriors just beat the Thunder on the 58th day of the year in their 58th game of the season. Whatever, Let's move on here. So the Warriors have 43 wins right now. And when they lost to the Bulls, it was their 43rd game of the season even. 36-7. It was their 43rd game of the season. Right now they have 43 wins. The score even totaled 214, 113 plus 111, 214. Like Valentine's Day, 214. Remember I said last year the Warriors won 122 days after Valentine's Day. Golden State equals 122. The game also went to overtime, just like the game last night and the game before with the Thunder. Just want to point out, too, the word earthquake equals 107 and 44. Identical gematria to the word overtime. Remember on the 44th day of the year this year, we had the 5.1 earthquake in Oklahoma. It was also the date numerology 2 plus 14 plus 20 plus 16 equals 51. It was a 5.1 earthquake on the 44th day. Earthquake even equals 44. Golden State, known for earthquakes. So just interesting. I want to point that out before I move on. So anyway, the Warriors have 43 consecutive home wins right now. The last time that they lost a home game was to the Chicago Bulls on their 43rd game of the season last year. They're chasing the Chicago Bulls' 44 home game win streak. This year, after they blew out Cleveland and then David Blatt got fired because of this and whatnot, they played the Warriors the Chicago Bulls the very next game. They won by 31 points. It just so happened to be their 43rd game of the season. The score even totaled 219. I talked about this in the previous video. Back-to-back championships equals 219. The NBA season began on October 27th, and the finals began on June 2nd, which is a span of 219 days. The Warriors lost to Portland on 2/19, the 50th day of the year. They lost by 32. 32 in gematria even equals 50. Lots of other stuff with it, but I started noticing a lot of these 1-1-3 connections with the Golden State Warriors. I mean, look at it here. On January 16th, they lost to the Detroit Pistons, who scored 113 points on them, 113-95. Pistons in gematria equals 31, just like Oakland. It all ties into the number 11. So interesting, they lose to Detroit. Detroit equals 37. The Warriors lost, keeping their 37 wins. Remember, 37 is the 12th prime number. Lots of 37-73 connected to Steph Curry. He just had 12 three-pointers in a game. Klay Thompson has the record for 37 points in a quarter. Last year, there was a big deal about Steph Curry making 73 consecutive three-pointers in a row in practice. 73, the 21st prime, the mirrors. Also interesting with 37, since I started noticing this 1-1-3 a lot, January 13th, 1-1-3 to 2/19 is a span of 37 days. Also, I mentioned this before, but the Warriors picked up Varejao because he was dropped by Portland. They picked him up on the 53rd day of the year. They lost to Portland by 32 on their 53rd game of the season, but they picked him up 3 months, 11 days before the NBA Finals begin. Then they play Portland again on 3/11. Interesting, too, Anderson Varejao picked up on 2/22, and 3/11 to 6/2, where the NBA Finals begin. A span of 2 months, 22 days, the 2-2-2. 2 months, 19 days before the NBA Finals begin is a span of 11 weeks and 3 days also, the 1-1-3. The Warriors play the Pelicans on this day, which is March 14th. It's Pi Day. Also, in other parts of the country, they write it as 14/3, the 143 reference that I've mentioned previously. In English gematria, you take everything in simple gematria and multiply it by 6. It's kind of like satanic gematria. 143 times 6 is 858, a huge connecting number this year. If you were born in 1958, you even turned 58 years old this year. We have the 58th Daytona 500, the 58th Grammys. I mean, just lots of 58 this year. Also, the date numerology of this day, Pi Day, is 53. And I've mentioned previously, the Warriors lost a lot. A lot of their games had this number connected to it, but then they beat the Thunder the other night in overtime, getting their 53rd win. So it's been bad forever. I'm trying to figure out what the pattern is of why they won that one and they didn't lose all the other ones. Although that game was connected a lot to the number 11 that I talked about. It was 11 weeks exactly after their first loss, and 11 doesn't seem like anybody's losing on it lately. Interesting too, so they're going to play the Pelicans on this day. They played the Pelicans on the first game of the season. But anyway, the Warriors lost. They lost to Denver this year on January 13th, 1-1-3. They lost 112 to 110. The total score adds up to 2-2-2. So, I mean, just interesting with the Varejao stuff. It's also the 13th day of the year. Before that, the Warriors lost to Dallas. Dallas in gematria equals 13. The first game they lost was on 12-12 to the Bucks. They lost by 13 to the Bucks. Also, the next time they played the Bucks, they won 121 to 112 after losing on 12-12. Right? 12-12. 121 is literally 12-21. 112, a lot like, the 12s and whatnot. Just interesting. What's even crazier, as I was writing this post on my computer this afternoon, I looked at the clock because my computer popped up and said that my battery was at 10%. And so when I looked at the time, it was 1:13, like literally right as I'm like typing all this. It's just some strange stuff. I don't know how it happens or what, but it is nuts. So the 95-96 Bulls lost their 45th home game, and it was to the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, how interesting is that, considering Michael Jordan now owns the Charlotte Hornets? Steph Curry from there also. I mean, just seems kind of strange, doesn't it? We just had the Panthers from Charlotte lose in the Super Bowl. Anyway, it was the Bulls' 75th game of the season that season. Charlotte Hornets in gematria even equals 75. So they lose their 75th game to a team that adds up to 75. The Warriors chasing the 44-game win streak. This is the Warriors' 44th season as Golden State. Steve Kerr came back on the 44th game that was on 122. The Warriors scored 122 points. Remember, Golden State equals 122 in gematria. That was also the same day that David Blatt got fired after 143 games. His birthday's on 5/22, the 143rd day of the year. It's 122 days before his birthday. I mean, just ridiculous. They both were rookie coaches who coached each other last year in the NBA Finals. I mean, his record was even good, 30-11, and they fired him. I mean, think about it. Interesting too, 122 this year. The date numerology adds up to 59. 1 plus 22 plus 20 plus 16 equals 59. The Warriors just won their 59th game of the season. One game before they're going to try to tie the streak. But running out of time. See you in part 2.